Hello, it's Paul Bergin here from the Mars Hill blog, which you can find at www.paulbergin.blogspot.co.uk. Today I'm doing this video is continuing my series of vlogs on political heroes who I fear political heroes of mine who I think have helped change society and culture for the better. And today was not someone who's a politician per se, or no, a political campaigner, and that's Dr. Martin Luther King, who was born in 1929 and was a Baptist minister. But he was a Baptist minister in the segregationist South, and being a person of colour, he was pretty much on the firing line. And he became famous when he and his church supported Rosa Parks, who finally had enough of the segregation in her life. And when she was on the bus, she did not sit where she was supposed to. And the fight was to break the colour bar there and in other areas. And gradually, the movement he led grew in a call for civil rights in the US. And it culminated on a march of Washington in '63. It forced President Kennedy to bring forward the civil rights legislation. After his assassination in November, Lyndon Johnson, his successor, was able to push forward that civil rights agenda, so it became law in 1964. And Martin Luther King got the Nobel Peace Prize. When he challenged the status quo, he did so taking leaf out the book of Gandhi in India, and that was to go through heavy resistance through non-violence. There was to be no bombs, there was to be no shooting, there was to be no armed resistance, there was to be no beating. They would simply resist the bigoted laws and deliberately break them, but through passive resistance. That means if someone hit them, they would not hit back. This was an incredibly painful and difficult situation to go through, but it paid off. It brought in more support, it brought in more resistance, and it helped break some of the Jim Crow laws and some of the disgusting racist legislation that existed in the US. Sadly, the attitudes are still a long way from breaking, as we've particularly seen the US in recent years. But we have seen such an amazing change, including the election of Barack Obama as the 44th US president in 2008 and 2012. But Martin Luther King, who was tragically assassinated in Memphis in 1968, was showed of in living through his Christian convictions, that you can be tough, you can be resilient, you can resist, but you do not have to go down a path of violence and unpleasantness. And that in taking a tough stance from a vulnerable position and embracing that vulnerable position can pay dividends in the long term and give you a lot more support. And that is a lesson all of us can learn, as we have seen how successful Dr. King was. Sadly, many of the attitudes he had to fight still go on, and they always will, but at least people are protected by legislation in a way that they had not been before. And that's why it's one of my political heroes.